If you're serious about differentiating your product or service from the competition, then this video is for you. This deep dive into using ChatGPT to differentiate yourself will ensure that you're doing everything possible to stand out from the competition. Its actionable guidance makes it a must-watch for anyone looking to position their brand as an industry leader or an innovator. Differentiation is not just about making a product unique, but it also fosters consumer loyalty, it fuels competitive advantage, and it drives sustainable growth. I'll cover all of that along with several AI tips and tricks that will serve you in many ways. Getting this right will make all of your sales and marketing goals much easier to reach. In addition, this video provides frameworks for internal analysis and stakeholder feedback, along with tips on market engagement and building strong feedback channels. This holistic approach ensures that no stone is left unturned in your quest to understand and enhance your product's unique value proposition. LLMs like ChatGPT make this process possible in a fraction of the time these analyses previously took. Unlike other resources, this video promotes a data-driven approach to product differentiation, from analyzing sales and onboarding data to synthesizing findings and identifying gaps. This approach ensures that decisions are made on solid evidence rather than gut feelings or assumptions. So if you're ready, let's get started. All right, so these are the 4 sections we're going to be going through today: the internal analysis and stakeholder feedback, competitive landscape and external expertise, market engagement and feedback channels, and finally data synthesis and gap identification. So all of this should really help get under the hood and figure out how you can differentiate your product from all of your competitors in ways that you may have never imagined before. So the first part of this is the internal analysis and stakeholder feedback, really getting a feel for the product assessment. So talking internally about what the current features are and get an understanding of where you're at now before you can work on differentiating it. This includes a feature list, so just brainstorming on your unique features and revisiting your value proposition. I'm going to be going through some of these prompts here. This first one, we're going to be using an example of a B2B cloud-based inventory management system. So there's a handful of these out there. It would be a SaaS solution for managing your inventory. And I should mention before we go on that I do have a cheat sheet with all of these prompts, all of these sections available in my Patreon. Just a few bucks for this and access to all the other cheat sheets I have for all of my videos. Again, it has all the prompts and everything in there. But moving right along with this section, the internal product assessment prompts. So using ChatGPT or an LLM like ChatGPT, I know there are a few others out there that are doing great work. Anthropic's Claude, Perplexity, all doing awesome work. You may put these into the large language model of your choice. So just having it help you list out the features, having it list out any unique features that may make your product stand out. So putting in, obviously, swapping out B2B cloud-based inventory system for whatever your product is, asking it for just some features that may not be commonly out there in the marketplace. I'm going to show you exactly what ChatGPT responded for all of these. This last one here, our value proposition is X. Can you suggest some improvements on the clarity there? Let me just show you what ChatGPT came back with. Scrolling up here. Help me list out the features and benefits of a B2B cloud-based inventory management system. So again, insert your product or service there. And this will generate the general features and benefits of a system like this, so you can see what the market is currently expecting for whatever your product or service is. And then from there, the second prompt, based on the features list, can you please suggest unique features that might not be commonly offered by competitors? And it starts brainstorming with you on ways that you can make your product stand out already from the second prompt. But we're going to get much more detail of how to improve upon this going forward. And finally, our value proposition is X. Put in whatever your value proposition is and ask it for suggestions on improving that. Okay. So now flipping back into the next phase here, getting stakeholder feedback. So using the large language model to help you do that same competitor identification, feature comparison, positioning map, not just with the large language model, but with your team and people who are familiar with your product. So some competitive analysis prompts we're in the X space. Can you list some potential competitors based on general knowledge up to 2021? That's in there because that is the last date of the training of ChatGPT. You can try this with Perplexity as well. As I mentioned earlier, it might have some more up-to-date info on your competitors. The second prompt here, can you help me generate a comparison matrix for whatever your product is using the features we listed earlier? Based on the features and benefits of our product and the competitors you listed, can you describe how we might create a positioning map? So I'm using ChatGPT 4, that's ChatGPT Plus, the paid version, and I've left Code Interpreter on. I feel like I'm getting some better results with just keeping Code Interpreter on, even if I'm not doing data analysis. I've heard rumors. It's hard for me to fully verify that, but I like it, and it also allows us to create some graphs and things we're going to see here in a second. So here are the answers to those prompts. Lists out some competitors here in that space. And then this next one, help create a comparison matrix for whatever you're in. And this, I don't know that you would create, that regular ChatGPT would create a nice table like this, but this gives you a template for your matrix there, so you can start to get a feel for how differentiated you are. This can make great collateral for your pricing page or some of your bottom of the funnel type content that you might be creating. So that's there. And then this last prompt here is based on the features and benefits. Can you describe how to create a positioning map? And this is a pretty interesting way to get a feel for your differentiation here. It lists out how to create it, and then it gives you an example. Here you can work with it to actually fill this in with your own data and actually have it create the positioning map for you there. I'm sure you've seen these around. You may already have created one of these. This is another way to see how you are competing in the space there. Moving right along to stakeholder interviews. So at reaching out to the founding team and interviewing co-founders, interviewing early customers, also advisors and investors. Here are some of the prompts for that. Can you please provide a set of unique questions for our founding team about product differentiation? The second one here, a questionnaire for early customers. And finally, help me draft a few questions to ask our advisors and investors about our product differentiation. So expanding out in all directions. Here are some questions for the founding team about the value proposition, key features, target audience. Really helpful to just get this ball rolling to start these conversations internally and be documenting all this, because you're going to want to feed it back into the large language model to continue to update those positioning maps and brainstorm on ideas to make things even more differentiated. So ton of good questions for the founding team. Here's a questionnaire for customers. So this can be a really nice part of your onboarding or somewhere in and throughout your process there, building out these questions. How do they hear about you? How do they feel about the product? And you may not use all of these, obviously, but it can get you started in the right direction and on a handful of good questions for your current audience about how they feel about your product differentiation. And now a few for advisors and investors. And they can offer, obviously, some really great feedback into how differentiated your product is as well. That is the first section here. Now let's move into the second section of the competitive landscape and external expertise. Analyzing marketing and branding materials, making sure that things are consistent and making sure that things are clear. These are the key components for making sure that your product is differentiated in the branding of your product and in the marketing. So here is a prompt for analyzing marketing and branding materials. I'm sharing the taglines and key messages from our recent marketing campaign, and it asks for feedback on that. Here's another one. We describe our cloud storage as X. We describe our service as X. Is this clearly communicating our unique features? So these all build on top of one another. Internal expert review. Asking industry experts or consultants for an unbiased review of your product and the marketing materials. Their feedback can really help provide insights on how you differentiate yourself, and peer review. Engage fellow startup founders. So reaching out beyond just your founding crew, beyond just your customers, and into other experts in the area or other founders to get their feedback on things. Here are a couple prompts for those looking to get feedback from industry experts and attending a startup meetup next week. This one I thought was really good. Attending a startup meetup next week, I'd like to approach fellow founders for feedback on our cloud storage product. Can you suggest some script to initiate this? And let's just see what ChatGPT 4 with Code Interpreter responded with. So going back to sharing some taglines and key messaging about our marketing campaigns and asking ChatGPT to analyze them for consistency, highlighting product and making sure that they highlight the product's differentiated aspects here. So this can be a great review just to take a step back on your marketing campaign and get a feel, are these all aligning and are they really highlighting what makes your product or service different, or are they just being viewed as more of the same? Again, we describe our cloud storage as an X. Is this clearly communicating our unique features? And again, at this point, your unique features should already have been listed above you've worked through those earlier in the chat show. So the large language model should have an idea of what those are. And you can have some back and forth on that. Moving on to looking to get feedback from industry experts. Can you help me draft an email template to reach out to them? And this is, I think, can generate some pretty good email outreach to just start to get some feedback for those industry experts. You might want to figure out what you can give to them in order to buy a little bit of their time and get some feedback on if your product is really differentiated in the space. And then finally, attending a meetup, getting a script here for how to approach other founders to elicit their feedback. And I think this is a great thing. Just anytime you're going to any sort of a business development event or any event at all, just working with ChatGPT on building a script and some ideas of how to get conversations started. It can really be helpful. I know it sounds corny, but it's easy to freeze up and not know what to say in those events. But if you have just some ideas in the back of your mind of ways to get conversations started naturally, I think it can really help get as much out of those different events as possible. All right, and now I want to move on from that micro analysis of just looking at your customers and some experts into more of a macro analysis of what might be able to differentiate your product even more by looking at industry events, looking at demo days, and even your online presence and the online presence of your competitors to get a feel for how to differentiate your product even more. So I personally overlooked trade shows and conferences for many years of my career, only to find after coming back to them that they are a great source for all sorts of business development and product differentiation resources. So I don't want to skip those. I've got some prompts about how to approach those, as well as demo days. So if you've ever presented your product at a startup demo day or pitch events, they are also great places to gather feedback on how your product is being perceived in order to further differentiate it. So here's a couple prompts that might be helpful there. I'm attending an X type of conference. Can you help me formulate questions to ask attendees for feedback on our solution? Or we're presenting our product at a demo day. How can we effectively gather feedback from attendees or judges post-presentation? If you're unaware of where those demo days are happening, you can probably use Perplexity AI or other sources to figure out those and brainstorm a process for getting involved with those. Also want to look at some prompts for digital footprint analysis. So taking a look at your online mentions and reviews, pulling those into ChatGPT to get a feel for what's differentiating your product there, what may be working so you can double down on it. Or if nothing's working, that should be probably available there as well. So here are a couple different prompts, and we'll take a peek at what ChatGPT came up with all this here in a second. But can you please provide a template or guide on how to monitor and analyze mentions of our service? Also, another one, we've received some online reviews. Can I share them with you for analysis? And remember, you can put a ton of information in that context window, so you can really fill that up with many words. There is a limit to it. That limit is always growing, but I think anywhere in the 1,500 words or more, probably topping out at 2,000 words or so into the context window. You can just drop all of your online reviews in there and get it to spit back some feedback. So those are some great ways to do some digital footprint analysis. Now moving into prototype or MVP. So if you're rolling out a new feature, or if your product is relatively young, you might want to engage in this usability testing. One of the lenses you want to look for this is what's differentiating your product. I think Mark Andreessen said you want your product to be 10x better than whatever the current market leader is. That's the goal you got to hit in order to get really any market penetration at all, is it's got to be 10x to get people to move off of the inertia of their old solutions. So feedback channels, ensure that there are feedback channels inside of your MVP. So looking for ways that inside of if it's a software product, people can continuously give you feedback. If it's another type of service, you can brainstorm on ways to get continual feedback that way. Here's a couple prompts for those. We've developed an MVP for a new feature for our cloud storage solution. How should we structure a usability testing section? That's one. And we want to embed feedback channels within our system. Any suggestions there? So let's take a look at what ChatGPT turned back with some of this stuff here. Let's see where we are. Can you provide a template or guide on how to monitor and analyze mentions of our cloud storage on blogs, forums, and social media? And this outlines a whole plan for you there on how to analyze this, choosing the right tools, setting up alerts, monitoring regularly. This is a very important part to continuous improvement, continuous differentiation, mapping this out, as well as here's the one about analyzing the reviews. So dumping in all of your reviews there and getting a summary of what the folks are generating on the different review channels to see if there's any insight into how your product is being viewed, if there's something working well. How can you then make sure that's in all of your marketing collateral and in your USP? Reverse engineer some of those first steps that we went through, analyzing those, making sure that anything that's showing up repeatedly in your reviews is, as a positive, is showing up in your marketing materials as well. So here is some ideas on structure usability testing, developing a plan there. That is one of the prompts that we went through. And then finally, we want to embed feedback channels within our product. Any suggestions there? So brainstorming with it on how you can get continuous feedback loops on the improvements that you're making to your product or your service. Okay, so now we're getting here into the final section of analyzing sales and onboarding data here. This is the final section of data synthesis and gap identification. So the sales interactions are a great place to learn why did you pick our product, what differentiated us, to see if you can double down on that. And then the onboarding feedback as well as another place to figure out what is working from a product differentiation standpoint. So here are a few prompts for those. Putting in notes from our recent sales demos and interactions. Even if the sale wasn't positive, maybe they're asking questions. Does it do this? Does it do that? And if it doesn't do that, maybe you should think about, can we add those features, or how can we position ourselves in a way to accommodate those, because those may be things that are lacking in the market. Those are problems that your audience is seeking to solve. Another one here for onboarding data. So analyzing different onboarding data, getting feedback from that as people are learning to use your tool or interact with your service. How can it be improved, and how can you mine those for opportunities to further differentiate your product? Now, gap identification here. Synthesize, finding, and identify gaps Insight compilation, compile insights from all of the steps above. Gap analysis, identify areas where the perceived differentiation is lower than expected and areas where the product shines. So we've done a lot of collecting of data up until this point, and now is where we can really turn that data into actionable product differentiation steps. So here are the prompts for that based on our previous discussions and feedback received. Can you compile a summary of insights about our cloud storage features and potential gaps? Given the insights and feedback we've discussed, can you help identify gaps in areas where it excels? And again, this is all for differentiating your product. So let's hop back over to ChatGPT and see what it came up with here by entering in some notes from demos. Came up with all sorts of ways to analyze these demo notes, these transcripts from videos, etc., giving you some action items there. We've received feedback from our new customers using this onboarding process. Similarly, analysis of giving you an overall analysis and action items there. And based on all of our previous discussions we've received, can you compile a summary of insights about our products, features, and potential gaps? And this gives you a rundown of the potential gaps here that you might want to look at for further differentiating your product. Given the insights and feedback we've discussed, can you help me identify gaps and areas where it excels? So this final one showing you where the product excels, where the gaps are, and finalizing your action items there. So I think we have thoroughly mined all of the different ways that you can seek to differentiate your product. I know that this feels like a lot of work, but I think that getting this right can really excel all of your marketing and sales interactions, because when you get down to that point of actual sales, marketing, digital marketing tactics, the better you have yourself positioned and differentiated, the easier it is to get all of those tactics to work. Again, I've got all of this in a cheat sheet format in my Patreon. I've also got some opportunities in there for some coaching if you're looking to implement AI further with your team. If you're looking to automate some of your processes, I'd love to help with that. And thanks a ton for watching. I hope you got something out of this video. Please feel free to like, subscribe, and leave me a comment. I really appreciate it, and I'll see you in the next video.
Make your dreams come true.